Photo Equipment, Part 3, Lenses, Presentation for the Advisor, Revised 2026, August. Lenses is the third video in the equipment series. What we will cover: dSLR lens availability 2026, lenses by use in sport, specific lenses, human factors, issues, what lenses are available in 2026 summer, general and sample lens kits, what lenses do you need, what lenses do I have, kits and migration, and a summary. Navigation. This is a long video. Please use the chapter links to go directly to the chapters that you want to view. dSLR lens availability 2026. With the migration from dSLR to mirrorless cameras, both the OEM and third-party lens makers have been discontinuing dSLR lenses. You need to plan to get your dSLR lenses sooner rather than later. Tamron has discontinued the Canon dSLR EF to EF lenses. The following 5 dSLR lenses that we use have been discontinued. We were caught in that Canon discontinuation. Sigma and Tamron 17-50 2.8 gym and theater lens. Tamron 70-210 f4 for the field. Tamron 35-150 2.8 4 for field and gym. And Tamron 18-400 field and diamond. If you have DSLRs, the only source for these discontinued lenses is the used market. KEH, Roberts Camera, B&H, Adorama, and others. For long-term use, you want to start planning to migrate to a mirrorless camera. Lens recommendations. I include lenses for both APS-C and full-frame cameras. What lenses I recommend is based on use, general purpose, theater, and sports by venue. Caution: not all lenses are available in all camera mounts. Lenses, non-sports, general purpose, theater, performing arts center. Lens, general purpose, single lens that will be usable for many events without the need to change lenses. For the APS-C camera, the 18-135, 140, and 150 lens. For the full frame, 24-105 and 24-120. Remember what I said on the previous slide? Well, the 24-120 is a Nikon lens. You cannot find that lens to go on your Canon camera. For APS-C, the common kit lens, the 18-55, will have to be supplemented by a longer lens, like a 50-200 or 70-300. That will require carrying and changing lenses more often, and that becomes a hassle for the students. The 18-140 wins for convenience. For the theater or performing arts center, the lighting is usually dim. Your lens will depend on the coverage width desired. For APS-C, 17-70 2.8 for the wide shots. APS-C and full frame, 24-70 2.8 for the wide shots, and 70-200 2.8 for the tighter shots. When holding the longer, heavier lens up for long periods of time, you will want to support the lens on a monopod or tripod. Caution: not all lenses have a tripod foot. Some have a tripod foot available, but as an optional extra cost item. Lens, sports by venue, field, football, soccer, lacrosse, diamond, baseball and softball, gym, volleyball, basketball, badminton, and wrestling. For the pool, swimming, water polo, diving, tennis, track and field and cross country, golf, bowling, and air riflery. On the field, for football, soccer, and lacrosse, day games, you have plenty of sunlight to illuminate the field. On the field, APS-C, 18-135 or 140, 50-200, 70-300, or 18-300. For full frame, 70-200, 70-300, or 100-400. From on top of the bleachers, APS-C 18-300, 70-300. Full frame, 100-400, or 150-600. Night games. Night games under lights require faster lenses than day games to deal with the lower light levels. At away games, lighting at other schools may have been built to different standards, so the light levels may be lower than at your school. The lenses, various 70-200 2.8 lenses. Pros for the night games, the f2.8 lens is probably the best lens to use. But the con is the 70-200 2.8 is a heavy lens, and some students may have to use a monopod. Some students may not want to lug it around. If the students do not want to use the lens, it is a wasted purchase. This will probably be your most expensive lens, especially the OEM models. Nikon Z 70-180 2.8 and Tamron 70-180 2.8 for the Nikon and Sony mounts. Pro, it's about half the weight of the 70-200 2.8. Next, the various 70-200 f4 lenses. Pro, they're about half the weight of the 70-200 2.8 lens. But it has a con. It is one stop slower than the f2.8 lens. Thus, it may not be fast enough on your dim fields. Finally, the Sigma 50-100 1.8 and 135 1.4. These are for your very dim fields. The con? These are big lenses with no optical image stabilization. Stabilization requires a camera with IBIS. The 50-100 is a rather short zoom range and it is APS-C only. The 135 is a single focal length, not a zoom. What lens should you use on the field? To answer that, you have to answer the next question. What is the light level at your field? To answer this question, we're going to do the following. Take a camera with a general purpose lens, such as an APS-C 18-140 or full frame 24-105, and a subject onto the field at night with the lights on. You will take a picture in the middle of the field, not on the sides. Check your exposure. Set the exposure to Exposure Mode M manual, ISO 16,000, shutter speed 1/800 of a second, aperture f5.6. Take a picture of your subject with the above setting. If the exposure of your subject is not good, adjust your shutter speed to get a good exposure. If you have to lower your shutter speed down to 1/400 or slower, then the light level on your field is low. Your night lens should be a 70-200 2.8. Just for reference, my exposure at my field is Exposure Mode M, ISO 8000, shutter speed 1/1000 of a second, aperture f2.8 with a 70-200 2.8 lens. Diamond, softball, and baseball. For day games, we have two options. One lens to cover the entire field, the APS-C 18-300 or the discontinued 18-400. Second option is to use two lenses. Here we need two lenses, one for infield and one for outfield. The APS-C lens for infield, 18-140, full frame, 24-105 or 120, or the discontinued Tamron 35-150. For outfield, 70-300, 100-400, or 150-600. For night games, only one of the high schools in my district that I know of has lights on their baseball or softball fields. The lens you need to use is the 70-200 2.8. The issue is there are no longer lenses that will have a 2.8 aperture that is affordable. So the 70-200 2.8 is the only lens you can use. Gym, volleyball, basketball, wrestling, and badminton. The issue: high school gyms are usually dim, requiring a fast lens. Problem here is away games. Lightings at other schools may have been built to different standards, so the light level may be lower than at your school. Next item, mood lighting. That simply means some of the lights are turned off for an even dimmer gym. In other words, mood lighting is a problem. So, what lenses do you use? APS-C, zoom, 17 to 470, 2.8, or the full frame 24 to 70, 2.8. Prime lenses, 35, 1.4 or 1.8, 50, 1.4 or 1.8. For full frame, zooms 24 to 70, 2.8 or 4, 24 to 105, 2.8 or 4, and 24 to 124. Prime lens, 50, 1.4 or 1.8. What lens should you use in the gym? Just like on the field, the question is, what is the light level at your gym? To figure this out, you take a camera with a general purpose lens, such as the APS-C 18 to 140 or full frame 24 to 105, and a subject into the gym. You will take a picture of your subject in the middle of the court. Check your exposure. Set exposure to exposure mode M, manual, ISO 12,800, shutter speed 1/400 of a second, aperture f5.6. Then take a picture of your subject with the above settings. If the exposure of your subject is not good, adjust your shutter speed to get a good exposure. If you have to lower your shutter speed to 1/200 or slower to get a good exposure, then the light level is very low. Your gym lens should be a 35-1.8 for APS-C or 50-1.8 for full frame. For reference, my exposure at my gym is exposure mode M, manual, ISO 6400, shutter speed 1/800 of a second, aperture f2.8 with a 17 to 50 2.8 lens. Tennis. Tennis is a day game in my district. Issues: during a match, we cannot be on the court. Tennis depends completely on where you can shoot from and how far you will be away from the players. None of the high schools in my district have convenient viewing positions to shoot all the courts. I am usually shooting through the chain link fence. So how do we do this? Shoot close during practice or warm-up or through the fence. APS-C 18 to 140, full frame 24 to 105 or 120. When you have to shoot from a distance, APS-C 18 to 300 or full frame 75 to 300 or 100 to 400. Swimming, water polo, and diving. Day, night, and indoor venues. Outdoor pool, daytime, sunny. General use, APS-C 18 to 140 or 18 to 300. Full frame, 24 to 105 or 120. Longer distance, 75 to 300 or 100 to 400. Indoor pool or outdoor pool at night with lights. APS-C 17 to 70, 2.8 plus 70 to 100, 2.8. Full frame, 24 to 70, 2.8 plus 70 to 200, 2.8, or 35 to 150, 2 to 2.8. Track and field. Day game. There are many events with different needs. Different distances to the subject will call for different lenses. For a one-lens setup, APS-C 18 to 300 or full frame 24 to 120. For two lenses, general purpose lens, APS-C 18 to 140 or full frame 24 to 105. For the long shots, 75 to 300 or 100 to 400. For night games or when your day game runs late, 17 to 70 2.8 for APS-C or 24 to 70 2.8 for full frame. and the 70-200 2.8, and 35-150 2 to 2.8, and the fast primes 35-1.8 and 50-1.8. Cross country, APS-C 18-140, full frame 24-120. Golf, it's a day meet. For one lens, the APS-C 18-300 or 18-400, which has been recently discontinued. For full frame, the 60-600, but only for Sony. Two lenses on two cameras, APS-C 18-140 and a 100-400. Full frame, 24-105 or 120, and a 100-400 or 150-600. In practice, using one camera and changing lenses is difficult because you're going to be changing lenses back and forth all the time. It is much easier to just grab a second camera with the mounted lens. And when I shoot golf, I use two cameras. Bowling, indoors, lenses, APS-C 17-70 2.8 or 24-70 2.8 and 70-200 2.8, or for your dim alleys, 35-1.8 and 50-1.8. For full frame, 24-70 2.8 plus 70-200 2.8, or the 35-150 2 to 2.8. And again, for your dim alleys, the 50-1.8 and 85-1.8. Air Riflery, indoors and outdoors. Indoors, APS-C 17-70 2.8 or the full frame 24-70 2.8 and 70-200 2.8. Or if it's dim, 35-1.8 and 50-1.8. Full frame, 24-70 2.8 and 70-200 2.8, or the 35-150 2 to 2.8, or if it's dim, the 50-1.8. Outdoors, plenty of sunlight, 18-140 and 75-300, or 18-300. Full frame, 24-105 and 75-300. A note about lights. Light bulbs and tubes will age and fail. Over time, the light level will get lower. The athletic director will not replace individual bulbs. He will wait till there are enough failed bulbs to justify the cost of hiring a maintenance crew to replace the bulbs. So gradually over a couple years, your light level may drop, maybe a whole stop. Adjustment for the lower light level. If you use auto ISO, that should take care of the lower light levels. If you are using manual ISO, you will have to raise the ISO level as the light level drops. This is a summary table of sports and suggested lenses for APS-C camera. Going down the left, the various sports. Going across the top, day and night or indoors. So you would choose your sport and go across to the lighting condition, day or night indoors, and determine what the recommended lenses are. And this is the chart for full frame cameras. Specific lenses, 24-70 2.8, 70-200 2.8, Tamron and Sigma 18-300 and Sigma 60-600, and the primes 35-1.8 and 50-1.8. Why the 24-70 2.8 lens? You need a fast lens for gym sports. It is a standard indoor sports lens for a reason. Zoom alternatives. dSLR. There are no zoom options for APS-C dSLR. The 17-50 2.8 lens has been discontinued and is only available used. For mirrorless APS-C, the 17-70 2.8 is available for some brands. Prime lens alternatives, APS-C 35 and 50, 1.4 or 1.8 lens. Full frame, 50, 1.8 or 1.4. Cost. This is not an inexpensive lens. The OEM version of this lens are from $1,600 to $2,500. The third-party versions of this lens range from $1,000 to $1,500. Why the 70-200 2.8 lens? You need a fast lens for night field sports, especially for dim stadiums. It is a standard sports lens for a reason: flexibility and speed. There are no other options for most cameras. Cost. This is not an inexpensive lens. The OEM version of this lens are all over $2,500. Third-party lenses are from $1,100 to $1,500. Anything longer than this lens is an expensive lens. Basically, you can't afford anything more than the 200mm 2.8. Lighter alternatives to the 70-200 2.8. Do not underestimate the weight issue, especially for your smaller students. We had an 80-200 2.8 sit in our equipment cabinet for years because none of the students wanted to lug it around. It was simply too heavy for them. So the alternatives: f2.8 lens, Tamron 70-180 2.8 for Sony and Nikon Z, and the Nikon Z 70-180 2.8. Both have 2.8 speed but are lighter than the 70-200 2.8. Or Tamron 35-150 2-2.8 for Nikon Z and Sony, and Fuji 50-140 2.8. Alternative: 70-200 f4. The con is it's one stop slower than the f2.8 lenses, but it's half the weight. The 18-300 400 and 60-600. Why? Convenience. It has a very wide zoom range. You do not have to switch lenses or carry two cameras. For example, baseball, you can shoot infield, turn the zoom ring, then immediately shoot the outfield catch. You do not have to switch to a second camera. Limitation: these are daytime lenses. You cannot use these at night. 18-300 APS-C mirrorless only. 18-400 APS-C DSLR only, and it has been discontinued. 60-600 full frame mirrorless, but only in the Sony mount. Prime lenses. The fast prime lenses are used when the light level is too low for the f2.8 zooms. In the gym, 35 and 50mm lens, f1.8 or 1.4. On the field, 135mm f1.4. Limitation: you have only one focal length. It is not a zoom. Some shots will be too wide and some shots will be too tight. That is the primary limitation of a prime lens. Human factors and issues. Lenses. Human factors. Weight. Some of your students are under 5 feet tall and less than 100 pounds. They cannot handle a heavy kit like an adult can. If the lens is too heavy for the student to carry and use, they may not use it. This is a lesson learned. This is the case when we had a 70-200 2.8 sit in a cabinet for 3 years because none of the students wanted to lug it around. So this heavy lens is the case with both the 70-200 2.8 and the bigger 150-600 lenses. Ideally for sports, you want the zoom rings on the lens to turn in the same direction. Switching from lens A to lens B, if the zoom ring turns in the opposite direction, could cause confusion. If you turn it one way for infinity on A and another way for B, your hand is going to not know which way to turn. Nikon, Fuji, Sony, and Tamron turn in the same direction. Canon and Sigma turn in the same direction. Nikon and Sigma turn in the opposite direction, same as Canon and Tamron turn in opposite directions. Stabilization. If the camera does not have in-body image stabilization, commonly called IBIS, the long lens should have optical image stabilization, or OIS. The long lens benefits the most from OIS. Caution: the long lens, which was and is commonly sold in DSLR kits, does not have OIS. That is a bad idea. Do not buy it. Issues. Lens selection, purchase is a compromise between cost, performance, and weight. Cost. Pro-grade lenses are more expensive and heavier than non-pro-grade lenses, sometimes much more expensive. OEM lenses, Canon, Fuji, Nikon, and Sony, are generally more expensive than the third-party lenses such as Tamron and Sigma. Long focal length zooms are generally more expensive than the shorter focal length zooms. Use. If a lens is rarely used, why buy it? You're spending money for nothing. When starting up, you may have to budget 1 or 2 lenses a year until you finally have the desired kit. DSLR lens availability in the summer of 2026. Both OEM and third-party have been discontinuing DSLR lenses with no replacements. Thus, you are forced to buy from the used market. And if you do, you have to buy your lenses before they become even more difficult to find. I have had to wait months to find a particular lens in the used market. Or you have to buy the more expensive full-frame lens. Mirrorless lens availability in the summer of 2026. Nikon and Canon are still building their mirrorless lens systems. There are holes in their APS mirrorless landscape. Canon has not opened the full-frame RF mount to third-party lens companies. And generally, you can use the same brand DSLR lens on the mirrorless cameras via an adapter. But if you forget the adapter, you cannot use the lens. OEM versus third-party. Pro for third-party lenses. Third-party lenses are usually cheaper than OEM, sometimes significantly cheaper. That is an important factor for budget-constrained schools. Third-party lens companies often make lenses that the OEM does not, thus plugging a gap in the OEM lens landscape. Cons against third-party lenses. As of July 2024, Canon has closed the full-frame RF mount to third-party autofocus lenses. This also affects their APS-C cameras because you will need the 7200 2.8 for night football. There is no APS-C version of that lens, so you will need that full-frame lens. Third-party lenses may not work with a new camera model. You may have to upgrade the firmware in the lens. Some lenses may have to go back to the manufacturer's service center to do the upgrade, or they may not be able to be updated. Third-party DSLR lenses may not work via the DSLR to mirrorless lens adapter. It is on a individual camera by lens combination. Issues. Light level. Away games. Light level could be lower at another field or gym. The alternative is get the fastest lens you can for each type of lens. Bulk. The bigger the lens, the heavier and bulkier they are and the more difficult to handle. The 70-200 is twice the weight of the 70-200 f4. The 150-600 is even heavier than the 7200 2.8. Most students are much smaller than an adult. A lens that is easy for you to handle may be difficult for a small student. Think less than 5 feet and 100 pounds. For example, we had our 70 to 200 2.8 sit in the cabinet for years because none of the students wanted to lug it around the field. Long lens support. Long focal length lens often requires a support, monopod or tripod, for stability and long duration shooting. The 7200 2.8 will probably require support for the smaller students. Most 75 to 300 lenses do not have a tripod collar. How will you support it? The Canon RF 7200 2.8 with internal zoom has a tripod collar, but the extending version does not. What lenses are available as of the summer of 2026? Special note for Canon mirrorless: Canon has closed their full-frame RF mount to third-party lens makers. If you have an APS-C RF camera, such as the R50, R10, or R7, there are no third-party RF 24 to 70 2.8 or 70 to 200 2.8 lenses for your camera. Your only options are: 1. Buy the expensive Canon RF lens. The 24 to 70 2.8 lens is $2,600. The 70 to 200 2.8 lens is $3,000 to $3,300. Or 2. Use the dSLR EF lens via the EF to RF adapter. However, only Sigma EF lenses are currently available. Tamron has discontinued their EF lenses. And the adapter is small and easy to forget. I've seen that happen. Leave the adapter in the classroom and you cannot mount your EF lens on your R camera. In the tables that follow, you will not see third-party autofocus lens under the Canon RF column. Note, lenses are grouped by use categories: general purpose, gym, field day, field night, and diamond during the day. Lens availability table that follows generally does not include discontinued lenses. However, there are a few exceptions. Lens availability is a moving target. Lenses could be discontinued without notice and new lenses added with little notice. So this chart, the charts that follow, is effective as of today. In 1 month, some of the lenses may be discontinued or you may have new lenses. This video is updated once a year in the summer. So come December, you may have new sets of lenses in or out of the chart. What is available? DSLR lenses below $2,000 for Canon and Nikon. As you look at this screen, you may say, hey, wait a minute, where's the Canon 7200 and Nikon 7200? They do make them, but they are over $2,000, as shown on this screen in the red. It's Canon 7200 2.8L and Nikon 7200 2.8. The red items are the lenses that are over $2,000. What is available? Mirrorless lenses below $2,000 for Canon, Nikon, Fuji, and Sony. As mentioned before, if you look under the Canon RF column, you will not find a Tamron or a Sigma lens there. And just like on the DSLR lenses, the 7200 2.8 are not here. They are over $2,000. As before with the DSLR, the lenses in red are over $2,000. In this case, the limit has been pushed up to $3,500. Why? Because the Canon RF lens is over $3,000. A general lens kit consists of a general purpose lens, a long sports lens, and low light sport and event lenses for the gym, field at night, and the theater. These are just the buckets that we will use to select lenses for. Sample kits. This table shows 2 sample kits, one for an APS-C camera and one for a full-frame camera. Lenses are general purpose, daytime long, and for low light, gym, field, and theater. That was just a sample. In reality, you can have many different kits based on different requirements. Here we have 3 different kits. Kit 1, 18 to 140 general purpose lens, 17 to 70 gym lens, 70 to 180 2.8 field night. This is chosen because it is lighter than the 70 to 200. And the 18 to 300 for the field and diamond. Kit 2, we're using the fastest gym and field lenses. 18 to 140 general purpose lens, same as before. But for the gym, 35 1.4 and 50 1.4, the fast primes because we have a dim gym. For the field, 70 200 2.8 because we want a little more reach than the 180. And for the field, and the baseball field, 100 to 400. Kit 3, day games, no gym. So instead of the 4 lenses of the previous 2 kits, now we're down to just 2. 18 to 140 general purpose lens and the 18 to 300 for the field and diamond during the day. But what lens do you need? The thing is, you have to determine your requirements. You cannot just take and use someone else's kits. Your requirements may be different. You may have different venues. For example, day games with no lights in the field versus night games under lights. If you have night games, you cannot use the kit from somebody who does not have night games. They can use any lens because they've got a lot of light coming from the sun, whereas for night games under lights, you don't have the sun to provide your lighting. Same thing with indoor pool versus outdoor pool. If you got an indoor pool, you have much less lighting than someone with an outdoor pool in the sun. Also, different sports such as canoe, sailing, snow ski, rodeo, judo, gymnastics, bowling, riflery, and more. What lens do you need? Remember this table from the requirements document? First, on the left, you're going to list down all the sports that you have. You need to be careful here because you may have sports that you don't even know about or that for some reason are not in the yearbook. Go to the athletic department and find out what sports you have. Then towards the bottom, you want to add the other items such as cheer, which may be not considered a sport, but it is covered in your yearbook. And the non-sport events such as the theater. Then what you will do is start filling in. For those sports, what do you have and when and where are they played? For instance, football. JV and varsity play during the day. But varsity also plays at night. You may start during the day, but then the sun goes down and they are playing at night under lights. So you have varsity under both daytime and night under lights. So you do the same thing for all the other sports. You start filling in daytime versus nighttime under lights or gym and indoors. Cheer. Cheer will go to both football and basketball, so they could be in everything. They're basically under daytime, nighttime, and in the gym. The next step, away games. Do you go to away games? If not, you can skip this slide. If you do go away to away games, then this is of interest to you. For instance, first line, football home, JV and varsity under daytime, varsity under night. Second line, football away, no lights. What this is meaning is your away school that you would play at does not have lights in their stadium. So you're only playing during the day. So that's why under the daytime it says away, and under nighttime it says NA or just leave it blank. Same thing for baseball. For instance, our baseball and softball field has no lights, so we only can play during the day. But go to another school, their field does have lights, so instead of playing during the day, baseball and softball are played at night under lights. So the away indication is under night under lights. Same thing with swimming. We have an outdoor pool. Another school may have an indoor pool. Golf is a weird one. It is only played during the day, but we will go into that later. It has other issues. Lenses. Now we use the chart that we made before and we start applying the lenses. We're going to do this in two ways. First, take an inventory of what lenses you do have, because you're going to have to put your lenses into this chart. It makes no sense to identify a lens on a chart that you do not have. For instance, if you do not have a 70-200 2.8, it makes no sense to put a 70-200 2.8 on the chart because you don't have that lens. So you get the inventory of what lenses you do have. Look at the previous slides for recommendations of what lenses to use for the various sports. Then you start filling in. For instance, football, home. You have an 18-140. You don't have the other two lenses, so you just put 18-140 under there. Varsity, your 70-200 2.8. Same thing with basketball. You put your 17-70 2.8 under your basketball. Golf is a weird one, as I said before. Golf is an away game. It is not on campus. But if you do not go to the golf course to shoot, you do not need a golf course lens. You may be shooting stage shots on campus, in which case your lens may be an 18-55 or 18-140, not the 18-400 that I would use on the golf course. Now, what this will also expose is situations where, hey, I don't have a lens that fits that particular requirement. So you may drive out requirements that says, hey, I need a 17-70 lens for the basketball in the gym. Or I need a 70-200 2.8 for football on the field at night. So this is doing two things. It's identifying what lenses you have and where to use them, and where you have gaps in your lenses. So how do you use this chart? You put it up in your equipment cabinet. The way it works is a student comes up to the cabinet. They know they're going to shoot, let's say, football. They look at the chart. Football, home. Are they going to shoot JV or varsity? JV. They look at, it's JV is under daytime, 18-140, so they get the 18-140 lens. If they're shooting varsity, well, varsity is under daytime and nighttime. So instead of getting the 18-140, they will take the 70-200 2.8 because it's the night. Same thing applies for baseball. Baseball at my school is a day game, so they grab the 18-300. But if they're going to an away game and the away game's at night, they take the 70-200 2.8. The whole purpose is to give your students a guide as to what's the correct lens to use. I have seen many instances of a student showing up with absolutely the wrong lens. For instance, student showed up to shoot football with a wide-angle lens. That wide-angle lens would only work if they're shooting the sidelines, like the bench or the cheerleaders. It won't work to shoot football on the field. They're just too far away for a wide-angle lens. So this at least gives the students a guideline for the correct lens to use for the particular game they're shooting. Tip: if you are shooting games from day into the night, such as JV football in the afternoon, then varsity football at night, just use your night lens. Then you only have to carry one lens and not have to stop and change lenses. So what do we have? This is the lens kit for my class. This kit was built specifically for the sports and venues at my school and based on the equipment available at the time. Cameras, DSLR, Nikon D5600, and now we've migrated to the D7200. Lenses, 18-140 general purpose lens, 17-50 2.8 for the gym, 70-200 2.8 for the field at night, and 18-400 for the diamond. Note, the kit was not built very quickly. It was built over 5 school years. So it took a while to build this kit. From that, we built kits. We have a night field lens kit, football, soccer, and lacrosse. 2 bags consisting of the Nikon D7200 plus the 7200 2.8. Daytime long for baseball, softball, golf, tennis, track, and field. Nikon D7200 and 5600 with the 18-400 lens. Gym and general purpose bag for volleyball and basketball and general purpose. Nikon D5600 and 7200 with the 17-50 2.8 gym lens and the 18-140 general purpose lens. Any general purpose bag, swim, dive, track and field, cross country. That consists of the Nikon D5600 and an 18-140 general purpose lens. So what about these kits? The kits make it easier to give gear to the students. Rather than having to pick out a camera, a lens, match different cameras to different lenses, we just grab a bag based on what they're shooting. If they're going to shoot football, we just grab bag 1 or bag 2. If they're going to shoot volleyball, we grab bag 5 or bag 6. It saves a lot of decision makings about picking and choosing between cameras and lenses. Also, the bags are complete. Camera, lens, spare battery, battery charger. Battery charger because we have instances where you would shoot the game, the last game at night, take the camera home. Then you would charge the battery overnight. That way, when you bring the camera back the next day, it is ready to go for the next student. If you brought back a camera with a dead battery, then how would the students shoot the next game? We would have to be charging a battery, and you can't charge a battery in the time period of a single period. You need a double period. Or you need to have a lot of spare batteries in the classroom. So it just made sense in this case to have the charger in the bag with the camera. But what happened since we started the kit? Both cameras, D5600, D7200, have been discontinued. 2 of our 3 specialist lenses have been discontinued. 17-50 2.8 is discontinued. 18-400 is discontinued. The only specialist lens that we have that is still in production is the 7200 2.8. So, given that situation, what are we going to do? So this is the lens kit that we have today. This is the lens kit that I would go for tomorrow. Unfortunately, since I don't have a crystal ball, I don't know what's coming in the future. So all we can do is say, based on the current lenses and cameras, this is what I would get. So if all the cameras died today, tomorrow, this is what I would get. Nikon Z50 Mark II mirrorless camera, 18 to 140 general purpose lens, 17 to 70 2.8 gym lens, 70 to 180 2.8 field lens, 18 to 300 diamond lens. And this is what I mean about migration. As gear fails and you cannot replace them, you have to start thinking about going to mirrorless. Start thinking about a migration path. What cameras do you go to? What lenses do you go to? I've built a path. When I have to execute, I don't know, but I've got a plan. And as new cameras and lenses come out, I will update this plan. Summary: there is a general lens kit as shown in this table. However, your kit should meet your requirements. You may have specific requirements for sports and venues which will alter the general kit. And keep in mind, what works for me may not work for you. Good luck. The end. Please continue to Part 4 camera, and please like and subscribe.